If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Please, please. Let's see. Starting off maybe with our motivation and just arriving. Maybe someone else will pop in. And in between puppy paws and all the rest that goes with that, right now, hopefully you have a moment of quiet, a moment of peace, and celebrating what you feel at the moment in terms of that quiet and that peace. So notice the sensations of sitting, the sensations of being here wherever you are right now, and the physical presence of letting go of everything else and just being here in the moment. Notice how the breath is richer with awareness. The awareness of the breath as it enters, the awareness of the breath as it flows through the body, the sensations of the body. Even the vibrations of the body as the breath moves. And interacts with those vibrations. The awareness of that. So our mind is part of that body, the awareness of the body, and the mind being aware of the body. So we can shift from the breath to the awareness of the breath and being conscious of how we are aware. Without forcing anything, without changing anything. And so the quality of our breath and the quality of our mind are reflections of each other. When our mind is constricted, our breath often is limited. So when we become aware of the body, then we can also relax the mind. Working the mind and body together, sort of in tandem. And focusing our efforts this evening, we can direct our motivation. May the efforts that we put forth this evening to understand the Dharma by listening, by analyzing or contemplating, or by meditating, may all of these bring about the best benefit possible. Not only the best benefit for myself, but also the best benefit for all others. And then we'll go ahead and do the Bodhichitta and taking refuge in generating Bodhichitta. Once in English, twice in Tibetan tonight. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye churang sogi choknam la changchu pardu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi pe sonam gi drola penchir sangye drupar sho. Sangye chodang sogi chognam la changchu pardu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gi pe sonam gi drola penchir sangye drupar sho. Thanks. All right. So I have my handy dandy PowerPoint to share with you all. Discovering Buddhism, transforming problems into happiness. And not just temporary happiness, but ultimate happiness. The best kind of happiness, the best kind of transformation. So this week, I thought, let's ask the question, how do we remember? How do we remember? Because all of what we've done so far is wonderful to have listened, to thought about, but what about when we're out and about and something happens, we stub our toe, somebody bumps our bumper, our dog jumps on our nicely made omelet. How do we remember? So our overview is the motivation you've done. Pardon me. We'll think about memory and intention. Discuss the 8th verse. Remind ourselves of the memorizing palace, the mind palace, and the ways of different memorizing techniques that we started last week, and see how that was. We might not do much more with the 7-point mind training. Tong Len and Chenrezig practice. Dedication. Sound good? Shayla, thank you for being here. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And thank you, Linda, too, for being here consistently. So we have these 8 verses of thought transformation by Langri Tangpa. That is the basis of what we're talking about. The method side we did through verses 1 through 7, and the wisdom, understanding the nature of reality, is really more supposedly, according to the Dalai Lama, in verse 8, which is tonight. So wisdom is what makes all the other perfections perfections. So without this last verse, without understanding the wisdom of emptiness, the true nature of reality, not some superimposed superstition. So one of the words we'll hear tonight is about the superstitious mind or the superstitions. And I remember, I don't know how many decades ago, hearing about the superstitions and wondering, what are we talking about? Are we really talking about, I'll step on a crack and break my mother's back kind of superstition, the throw salt over your left shoulder or whatever it is, like those kinds of superstitions? What is the meaning of superstition? And of course, superstition kind of has that, belief in a thing that's really kind of superficial, and you wear the pink socks or whatever it was so that you can win the race. You do some little thing. Each jockey that gets on a horse has its own superstitious ritual. So undoing those are for sure that makes sense. But is there some other meaning of superstition that is being indicated by our 8th verse when we get to that? I used to think superstition was only those little rituals, and now I have convinced myself, I don't know that I know, but I convinced myself that there's this other layer a little bit more subtle, and I wonder if I have it right. Well, anything that you feel like you've learned, reflecting back to what you believed before you learned that, comparing those two, and any wondering, any questions that come up like that. Please let me know if there's questions so that I don't talk the whole time. So that it's not just about my silly mind having its own superstitions occupying it. Any questions to start before I jump in? From the last couple of weeks, anything?
I have one, but it's about the mind palace, so I'll ask then.
Okay, that's perfect. Anything from anyone else? No.
Mine was about the mind palace as well. So
All right, we'll get to that then. I hope I have answers. All right, so our first 7 verses, just to review. Determined to accomplish all success, I shall always practice holding dear all sentient beings who are more precious than wish-fulfilling gems. Wherever I go and whomever I accompany, I shall practice seeing myself as the lowest of all and sincerely hold others dear and supreme. In all actions, I shall examine my mind, and the moment an unsubdued thought arises, endangering myself and others, I shall face and avert it. Whenever I see a being of wicked nature who is overwhelmed by heavy non-virtue and suffering, I shall hold him or her dear as if I had discovered a precious treasure so difficult to find. When out of jealousy others treat me badly with abuse, insult, and the like, I shall practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to others. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall practice regarding him or her as my holy guru. In short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. Secretly, I shall practice taking all their harmful actions and suffering upon myself. So, 5 weeks, 7 verses. And tonight's verse. With all these practices, undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. With all these practices undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. So I pulled out 4 main points this time. And the first point is a question. How is this verse the wisdom wing, where the other verses are all the method wing? So when we talk about wisdom and method, we talk about sometimes skillful means, sometimes compassion, and there being 2 wings, the compassionate side and the wisdom side. And without both, you can't fly. But with one, so with just one, you're lopsided, right? The wisdom side, the emptiness side, the understanding the true nature of reality side is the mother of all Buddhas. You can't achieve Buddhahood without achieving wisdom, realizing emptiness, without having the complete purification of all the obscurations to the 2 types of obscurations, the delusions and obscurations to knowledge, the omniscience of a Buddha. So the wisdom is essential. You don't undo the delusion, especially the delusion of ignorance, which is the base of every other delusion. You don't undo that until you have wisdom, realizing the true nature of reality, of all phenomena. So the words like emptiness and wisdom, realizing emptiness, and so on are pointing at understanding the true nature of reality, understanding the way things exist in an ultimate way, not a temporary way, not a superficial way, not a hidden way, not a covered way, but in that ultimate truth, which is is totally, you get to wisdom realizing emptiness through causes and conditions, but that on some level it's the ultimate answer to how is it that things exist, a final answer. So this verse, with all these practices undefiled by the stains of superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. So I think there's a few unpackings we have to do to answer this question. Undefiled by stains of superstitions of 8 worldly dharmas. So the 8 worldly dharmas are the 4 wanting pleasure, comfort, wanting praise, wanting fame, and wanting rewards or gifts. And then the other 4 are the not wanting, the lack of those 4. Not wanting suffering, not wanting criticism, not wanting bad reputation, and not wanting the lack of gifts or the lack of rewards. So I think I mentioned way back at the first class that when Lama Zopa Rinpoche talks about how he first began to practice Dharma, it was when he understood the difference between these 8 worldly Dharmas and the Buddha Dharma. When we say we are undefiled by the stains of these superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, there's no hint of these desires and repulsions in our motivation or our actions. So if we've noticed in ourselves that one of these 8 worldly dharmas is motivating us, is the primary motivator, for instance, we want pleasure, we don't want suffering, we want praise, we really can't stand criticism. There have been many years in my life where criticism sent me into such a state of mind, I really couldn't handle any criticism. But in essence, that's not Dharma. That's just if I'm solely reacting to that, not wanting to experience that state of mind, the complete collapse of my working mind, just because somebody's criticizing me. If I'm trying to avoid that, it's really got no purpose except for the temporary feeling of being free of criticism. But it hasn't got a use. It's not really I can maneuver myself through life trying to avoid being criticized. I'm not sure how successful I am when I do that, but it's sort of a waste of time. It's beside the point. It's a stain of a superstition, it's like trying to avoid a crack in the sidewalk. It's almost a fault, trying to avoid criticism, because then maybe I won't do something that I really should do just because I don't want to get criticized for it. Yeah. So if we approach all these other 7 verses without trying to avoid anything that's unpleasant, without trying to grasp at things that are pleasant, whether that's fame or rewards or pay or spiritual recognition or being well known for something or being praised. And instead, if we can perceive what is appearing to us, Dharma is another word in Tibetan. The word for dharmas, as we see here, perceiving all dharmas, is ch, and ch means, with a capital letter, Dharma, the holy Dharma of Buddha, or it means all phenomena, all things, all entities, all all phenomena. If we perceive all phenomena as illusory, as illusory as the moon is in a lake on a full moon, seeing the moon in a lake, it looks just like the moon if the lake is still, but it's a total illusion. It's really not the moon. It's just the reflection of the moon. Perceiving all phenomena, the scarf around my neck, my hair that's dripping down my neck, the everything that we have a sense of, all of our senses, all of our sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, everything with our 5 senses that we experience as concrete, as independent, as different from each other, specifically an individual thing, all of that experience is an illusion based in our misconception of the true nature of reality. Once our mind shifts over and sees the true nature of reality, because the subject mind has shifted in its understanding and its perception, the thing doesn't change necessarily, but the subject mind having changed, it's a completely different experience. It's without the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, and it's totally in accord with seeing all dharmas as illusory, meaning that our mistaken mind sees them incorrectly. So then, by doing that, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping. to release all sentient beings from bondage.
I'm sorry, can you tell me again what Lama Zopa Rinpoche's definition of superstition was? I was Googling the word illusory and I didn't hear. Apologize.
No problem. I don't know that I said in that way. I don't remember saying Lama Zopa Rinpoche's definition of superstition. What I was saying was his presentation of when he began to understand the difference between Dharma and not Dharma was when he read the Opening the Door of the Dharma, which is a text that he found, I believe, in the cave of his predecessor. And in reading that text, he began to understand what is Dharma, what is Buddha Dharma, what is it that is distinguishing the 8 worldly dharmas from Buddha Dharma. And in this verse, it connects that 8 worldly dharmas, superstitions of 8 worldly dharmas, the stains of the 8 worldly dharmas, the stains of, well, when we think of superstition, we think of a mind that's kind of clouded with superstition, right? It's not in accord with reality exactly, right? It's superimposing. And here's what I think is like another layer or like a subtlety to this is there's a imposition when you are superimposing a superstition on something. There's a sidewalk. We're walking down the sidewalk and we're singing that song, Step on a Crack and you break your mother's back, right? You are superimposing something on a sidewalk that isn't there. That's what I've kind of learned over the years or convinced myself is part of what is meant by superstitions in this Dharma term, this Dharma way, where we have an experience of the world and then we superimpose meaning on it that isn't accurate. That's a superstition, right? And it doesn't mean that we're going around chanting kids verses. It means that in our adulthood, we're going around and we're saying, I like crystal lamps, but I don't like ceramic lamps because of the way that the crystals interact with my aura or something, like what is it that I have around me that then I'm attached to, I create a meaning around. Oh, don't I ever, it's like it's like a total fantasy. I don't remember if it was this week or last week where I kind of got to the point where I was laughing at myself because I was getting a little bit miserable because something wasn't happening the way I thought it should happen. And it was causing me a little physical pain because I was like so involved with this thing. And I looked at it a little closer and I was like, this is ridiculous. this doesn't exist. I want it to exist, so I'm making it a big deal just so that I can suffer because it doesn't exist. So I've made something exist that doesn't exist just so that I could suffer because it's not there. I'm like, why? It was really almost funny, but not. I was definitely not perceiving all dharmas as illusory. I was not practicing this verse. I was totally grasping and unable to release even myself from bondage. I was completely bonded to that idea that didn't exist. With all these practices undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, putting those on top of what's actually there, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, which our perception as an ordinary being is an illusion compared to the way things really are. I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. I think that last bit, practice without grasping in order to release all from bondage, I think that's got to do with our Tonglen practice. It's got to do with the other 7 verses of how we are practicing as the lowest of them all, holding all others dear, remembering the kindness of and the preciousness of those people that are not fulfilling our wishes, let's say, that are either abusing us badly, insulting us, not grateful for what we've already given them, not fulfilling the hopes that we have for them to do something for us. And yet they are allowing us to practice. They're giving us this opportunity that is rare and precious. Rare and precious. So practicing without grasping, also not grasping at one over another of these beings, like not giving preference. Oh, you paid my parking ticket yesterday, so I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to release you from bondage. But you gave me the parking ticket the day before, and so I am not going to release you from bondage. No. The Buddha was kind of obvious about this, you know. He had his cousin Devadatta and you know, Angimala and all these stories of people that wished him harm, and he still worked his way into their hearts and released them from bondage. So this practicing without grasping could be not grasping one over another type of being, a friend over an enemy, releasing all from bondage. It could be without grasping at, I need this, I need this, I need this for myself to do that. I need this so that I can do that. Grasping at that without grasping at the result. Oh my gosh, this one is really tough. Here we are, we're going to practice Dharma. We want to become enlightened in order to benefit all sentient beings. Why haven't I gotten there yet? Why am I still totally superstitious, totally embroiled in a fantasy world, totally defiled by wanting fame, wanting happiness, wanting praise, wanting rewards. Back to the first question. How is this verse representing the practice of wisdom? There's two things we accumulate. We accumulate merit and we accumulate wisdom. When we accumulate merit, we accumulate the causes for the Buddha's body. And when we accumulate wisdom, we accumulate causes for the Buddha's truth body instead of the form body. The truth body is like the mind of the Buddha. The form body is like the body, physical body of the Buddha. And anywhere the mind of the Buddha is, the body of the Buddha is. So, or vice versa. Even one single atom of the body of the Buddha has the mind of the Buddha present. So if we need both the form body in order to bring manifested benefit to others, be able to interact and do activities with other sentient beings, and we need the mind of the Buddha in order to be a Buddha, we need both of those. We need to accumulate merit and we need to accumulate wisdom. So how is this verse getting us closer to accumulating wisdom and the truth body of the Buddha? All these practices, undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. If you picked out 1 or 2 phrases to answer the question, how is this verse a training in wisdom or an accumulation of wisdom, which 2 phrases would you pick out?
I'm going to go with by perceiving all dharmas as illusory.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear that, we talk about appearances like a dream or an illusion, a magical emanation of a magician. There's I think it's Marpa, or had the 12 kind of, I'm forgetting exactly, but it's like a star, a lamp, all of these illusions. Yeah. Which is this other verse? Like if we could perceive all dharmas as illusory, this is definitely a practice towards that goes along with meditations and emptiness, especially meditations off the cushion. So if you sit in meditation and you do this very intensive analysis of reality and look for the essence, the true way in which things exist, and then you get up off your cushion and you focus on how appearances are illusory. That's very traditional. But what other part of this might point us in the way of wisdom? With all these practices undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, by perceiving all dharmas as illusory, I shall practice without grasping to release all sentient beings from bondage. Does anything else jump out as a potential pointer towards emptiness, towards the true nature of reality?
It will be the next line. I shall practice without grasping.
Without grasping? Mhm.
Yeah, it's really, yeah.
Without grasping. If you have the grasping, you're definitely past ignorance. You- you're manifesting delusion, right? You've taken ignorance into action. Grasping is that action of ignorance. What do you think, Linda?
What comes to my mind is going back to verse 2, in closely examining my state of mind, and the moment a disturbing emotion or negative attitude arises, to firmly face it and avert it. So it's having that recognition.
So that's part of wisdom for you, is understanding when you're going into delusion.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's that each of those instances doesn't exist on its own side.
I see.
If that makes any sense. The emptiness stuff is relatively new to me, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Okay. When I kept asking this question of you guys, I kept seeing more. I kept seeing more ideas come into my head saying, oh, but that's kind of pointing at emptiness as well. But I'm trying to look at this verse,
This particular verse. Okay.
this particular verse as the wisdom wing, because His Holiness,
Right.
way back in the beginning, he said, the first 7 are the method and the 8th is the wisdom, right? So we've got the methods of facing and averting. We've got those methods in those first, second, third, and fourth, up through the 7th verses that help us to kind of deal with our mind and how it's manifesting in relation to others. But this verse is supposedly about wisdom. And I want to figure out why, right? I want to figure out why this particular verse is more about wisdom than the others.
Mhm.
Okay, so with all these practices undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas, that in itself, you have to, it's almost like when you can understand emptiness, you can actually understand the 8 worldly dharmas. Wait a minute. I saw those blinking eyes. With all these practices undefiled. Okay, so we're practicing, we're doing this, but we still have that desire to be recognized. We still have that desire to have something pleasant happen to us because we're eliminating all of our imperfections. We still have that wish to be be famous for what we accomplished by doing all of this. We still have that wish to be rewarded. However, if we undo ignorance, if we eliminate ignorance of the true nature of reality, and we get to the point where we totally know how things exist, am I really going to be concerned about, a little bit of fame or a little bit of criticism? If I totally am beyond doubt about the nature of how things exist, how karma ripens, how everything is interdependent, how little the emphasis on myself is real. All of that superstition, if all of that is gone, I'll be in a state of greater wisdom, won't I? I will have achieved some level of wisdom just by not having the defilements of those 8 worldly dharmas. Okay, so that's a new thought for me. And then, like Shayla saying, perceiving all dharmas as illusory, that's obviously part of the traditional understanding the true nature, that we've got this conventional truth. Now, conventional and ultimate truth are the two truths, right? Conventional truth in the Tibetan, it means covering, almost like you're lying. It's a covering, right? So conventional truth has covered over the ultimate truth. It is a covering. It's almost like a lie because it's covering the truth. But it's true because the covering functions as the covering. Okay, so you cover over the lamp with a shade, and that shade, lampshade, covers the light. You still have light, it's muted, right? And it functions. It doesn't glare at you like this lamp does. It's a hidden truth. Ultimate reality is uncovered. It's the bare truth. It's the final. So ultimate has 2 meanings in philosophy. One is that final, like after you work your way through all the logic and everything, you get to the final meaning. You get to the ultimate meaning. Ultimate also has another meaning, another level of meaning where it's like the highest or the most supreme or the ultimate, right? So these 2 truths, the ultimate meaning and the conventional reality, are in a way illusory. All dharmas as illusory is sort of like, conventionally we see things, they appear, the way that they appear is an illusion. So seeing all phenomena as arising in this kind of conventional nature as illusory, I shall practice without grasping. And again, you pointed out that because grasping is a delusion that's based on ignorance, if you are without grasping, you're closer to that wisdom. But then the next thought, to release all sentient beings from bondage. One of the things to investigate is the relationship between great compassion for all sentient beings and emptiness. When we have this incredible compassion and our mind is in that state of compassion, it's said that that can't undo the ignorance of ego grasping, that only the wisdom realizing emptiness will actually undo that ignorance. But there is some sort of a relationship between the mind that holds on to these incredibly virtuous states, such as great compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta. When our mind is in that state, there's a relationship with that, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And one of the ways that we see that relationship is that when we talk about the paths of the Bodhisattva, the first path of the Bodhisattva relies on wisdom realizing emptiness. There's a relationship. You can't become a true Bodhisattva without having wisdom realizing emptiness. So there's some relationship eventually between the mind that has wisdom and the mind that has compassion. And when we talk about this last phrase, to release all sentient beings from bondage, you're talking about the compassion to release them from bondage. It has to be there, or you wouldn't do that. So in my mind, there's this connection with wisdom and that compassion that wishes to release all sentient beings from bondage. And bondage there means the bondage to samsara, the bondage to the illusion as if it were real, the bondage to delusions based on ignorance, so that the ignorance of how things truly exist is creating that bondage, that tie to samsara, that cyclic existence. That when you study the 12 links of dependent arising in the wheel of life, right, where the different realms of God realms, human realm, animal realm, hungry ghosts, and hell beings, when you look at that wheel, it's a visual representation of the 12 links of dependent origination, which is really breaking down how we get tied into samsara. And when you break that down, it's that grasping that creates the next set of karma. If you don't actually grasp, if you just experience whatever arises without grasping at anything, without the 8 worldly dharmas pulling you into that grasping, if you can just experience it, you kind of cut the karma. You finish the karma by experiencing it, and yet you don't create new karma because you're not engaging in the next step of creating karma. So without grasping, you release yourself from bondage because you're releasing yourself from the cyclic existence that you have. All right, that's a lot of information. Any questions? No questions. Are you bored?
I'm definitely not bored.
Okay, good. So we can listen to this in Alex Berson's translation and see if we have any insights that come from a different translation of the same Tibetan. And we'll just look at the verse 8. Through a mind untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning 8 passing things, throughout all of this, and that knows throughout all of this, and that knows all phenomena as an illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. Quite different, yeah? Quite different. Through a mind untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning 8 passing things. So here, Berzin is really emphasizing conceptuality, that if we experiencing if we experience something directly, it's different than when we have a concept about it. So this is highlighting that superstitious conceptual superimposition, right? So untarnished by stains of conceptions concerning 8 passing things. So conceptions concerning the 8 worldly dharmas, or the 8 passing things, conceptions about it. So how we think about, how we conceptualize when something comes at us that's pleasant, when something that comes at us that's unpleasant, when something comes at us that is praise, when something comes at us that is criticism, when something comes at us that is fame, us becoming famous, when something comes at us that is sort of accusing us of being having bad reputation, when something comes at us that is rewarding us, and when something comes at us with a lack of reward. When we have a conception concerning that whatever's coming at us, that tarnishes our mind. Those stains tarnish our mind. Today I was in a bathroom, and I was looking at the tile, and as I was just looking at the tile in the bathroom, I realized I was superimposing the tile pattern like an after image from my eyes. The light and dark of the tile pattern had become an after image that I was then superimposing on what I was looking at, more tile, right? And I saw that, and I thought to myself, wow, it was only a few seconds I was looking at the tile, right? Imagine, I've watched movies. I've been watching a movie lately. All of that after image of the movie probably has been going through my eyes just as much as the tiles have. And so everything that we do kind of imprints on our physical sense organs, right? And there's an after image that we then have to look through in a sense. Does that make sense? Sort of like these stains of conception. So every thought we have is sort of like putting on a different colored glass for our glasses, right? Every thought has a little bit of a stain, and our perception through that is tarnished. Imagine having a mind untarnished by any of that. Imagine having a mind that also knows all phenomena as an illusion. And with that kind of mind that's untarnished and knows all phenomena as illusion, may I break free from my bondage without any clinging. What else is there to say?
I didn't hear that last.
I was just saying, what else is there to say? I think it's said, all said. If we can do that, we'll be in good shape, right?
Absolutely. So let me see if I have this right. I'm going to put it in my terms.
Please.
Through a mind untarnished by stains, and I'm going to use the word filtered, like with a camera lens, unfiltered by the stains of conception concerning the 8 passing things. Those are the things that are going to that are fleeting, that we're not, they're not going to stick around. All this solution. Did I get that right?
Yes, I don't understand the throughout all of this and where that comes in. The throughout all of this, when we looked at this other one, the throughout all of this, with all of these practices, perhaps it's this phrase, with all of these practices, throughout of all of these 7 verses, throughout all of this, with all of these practices, undefiled by stains of the superstition. So now I think that's the phrase, through a mind untarnished, throughout all of this, these 7 verses, these practices of 8 verses of mind training. The mind that's throughout all the practices is untarnished by the stains of conceptions concerning the 8 passing things, and that knows all phenomena as an illusion. May I break free from my bondage. So it's really saying, similar to the prajna, the paramita yana, right? The 6 perfections. The perfection of generosity becomes the perfection of generosity when you add in the wisdom component, right? The perfection of ethical discipline isn't a perfection until you are doing it with the mind that realizes emptiness. It's that practice of a bodhisattva that is imbued with the wisdom aspect that makes it a perfection vehicle practice. And so here, this 8th verse is sort of like that. It's imbuing all of these 7 with the the right view. And once you have the right view, all of these practices become causes for breaking free from my bondage without any clinging. Without these, if we did all these 7 with the stains of the 8 worldly dharmas, we wouldn't be breaking through anything. We would just be increasing our egocentric, self-centered attitudes. And we have to break down the misconception of self in order to address that, in order to actually break out of the bondage that we have that's created by that misconception of self. Have I lost you? What do you think, Linda?
I'm wondering how this fits with, it seems like it's not dissimilar to these stains that you're talking about. How trauma affects a person, and how like an adverse childhood experience or a trauma later in life, that's the view that a person sees through, but it's a stained view. It's not a clear view.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where to go after that.
Well, trauma is sort of like an obvious example of that. But we have countless events in our life that we wouldn't necessarily label trauma that have influenced how we experience things, how
Right.
we interpret what we feel, how we react to things that are presenting to us.
Mhm.
And if we leave those in the unconscious realm, they kind of run the show.
Right.
If we become conscious of them and somehow work towards understanding how they aren't the only way to interpret things, there's some hope that they won't be the only thing that runs the show. There might be something else that also we can build on from those experiences. So what trauma is a very kind of engaging and like mind focusing event, right?
Mhm.
Um,
So it's breaking out of that. It's similar to attachment, but breaking out of the bondage of how one views the world via previous bad experiences or trauma, little traumas, big traumas, whatever. So to break out of that bondage.
it could be things that are experienced as pleasure and
True.
not just traumas, right?
Right. Right. It goes on both sides.
Bondage can come from either side.
Right. The attachment to the good as well. Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So here, bondage here isn't just traumatic bondage. It's bondage in terms of samsara, and samsara is everything that creates suffering. And so what creates suffering are the 3 poisons.
Mhm.
Any delusion that is the basis of our actions boils down to these 3 poisons: ignorance, attachment, and anger. And the combination of them becomes pride and greed and jealousy and so on. But they boil down to these 3, and of these 3, the root cause is the technical term ignorance, which
Okay.
is a misconception of how things exist, how I myself exists in the world, and how every other phenomena in the world, including all other beings, all other selves, how every phenomena in the world exists in its ultimate nature. So if
Okay.
I have a true understanding of how things exist, that undoes the delusion of grasping which causes suffering, right? And causes anger when it isn't fulfilled, right? So there's that attachment that doesn't get fulfilled, then there's anger that comes from that. So but it's all based on the ignorance. If that ignorance isn't there, there's no cause for suffering, right? So if we actually get to the point where we have wisdom, we no longer create suffering for ourselves or for other people. When we get to that actual thing that's called wisdom realizing emptiness, when we get there, we don't suffer anymore. I mean, you don't just not suffer anymore in the temporary sense. You don't suffer anymore forever. When you really get to the direct realization of emptiness, then that's the end of suffering. You've reached nirvana. You don't have to suffer anymore, because there's nothing wrong with the way you see things. There's no mistake that's grasped at in a way that causes suffering. So all of this stuff about emptiness is a philosophical attempt to get to that mind that realizes how things actually exist. And emptiness is a shorthand for thousands of years of conversation, right? In the word emptiness. Thousands of years. Now, I don't think it even is only 2,500 years. I think it's like 7,000 years conversation. We're talking in one word, emptiness. 7,000 years of conversation, one word. So if we have an intellectual understanding of what that might be, that's wonderful. When we have an experiential understanding of what that might be, it starts to become more real, right? And then when we have a concentrated experience of that understanding in a way that is uninterrupted, that is made subtle, made pliable by practice, then that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a mind that becomes an Arya being, a mind that becomes a noble mind, through a transformation of the subject, the mind itself. And then the object is emptiness. So what that's how we make our way towards Buddhahood, right? This mind that we have now has Buddha nature hidden in it, has the potential in it. We don't have that manifest at the moment. We don't have Buddha, we don't have omniscience. I don't have omniscience. Maybe you do, but I don't have omniscience. I don't know everything there is to know, present, past, and future, about all different types of things, and I know it accurately. that's what a Buddha can do. But becoming more and more able to understand the true nature of reality is like steps towards that. Yeah. And breaking through the bondage is the delusions, the bondage of the misdirected emotional distractions, the clinging, the ignorance, the anger creates the bondage. It creates the karma that creates the setup for us to experience the results that we've put in play through those deluded actions that we've made. Every 64th of a second, a snap, every 64th of that, 64 points in time in every single snap, each one of those is a moment we create karma. So if our mind is grasping at a self during each one of those 64 moments within each snap, imagine how much karma we create. All right. Wow. I'm wiped out. How about you? Let's talk about memorizing mind palaces and so on. What were your questions? Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I spent quite a bit of time, I think it was Saturday afternoon, with these 8 verses and distilling down each, synopsis of each of them, as we've been doing over the past several weeks. And I made a feeble attempt at trying the different rooms. And I recognized that I had a stroke in July, and I'm not wanting to tax my brain to try and do something like that right now.
Yeah.
So I have made notes for myself. I mean, I've got it down to a half, like a quarter of a page, breaking down each one of the 8. And I think I'm, trying to create that, commit that to my memory. So just the basic meaning for each one for me, how it sits with me. I've read a couple different translations. I read what was sitting with a commentary by the Dalai Lama over the weekend. And it's interesting because today when I was walking my dogs, several of the different pieces came up for me. So that is one way that I think that I can commit this to memory without memorizing each passage and taxing myself, if that makes any sense.
When you realized that you were thinking about a verse or a part of a meaning, what was triggering those?
One was handing over the victory. And it's like a silly example, but there's a man. I walk the Santa Fe River Trail every day with my dogs. I have 2 dogs. One of them is extremely reactive around particular situations. And one of those situations is people who are having their dog off leash. And this man I have seen many, many times on the trail, and he runs with his dog off a leash. And it's always a really traumatic experience for me seeing him coming and how I'm going to handle it. And I know my way. I know now to have escape routes. You know, I don't walk anywhere where there's not somewhere else I can get to with my dogs when I see someone coming with the dog off leash. So, and I have found myself over the past several months getting really angry with this man. You know, it's like he's not following the rules, and the rules are that you should have your dog on a leash and na. And today I saw him, I got out of the way, and it's like, how do I hand the victory over to this man? How do I do that? You know, so I'm like starting to question that. And also the piece about, you know, when I find myself, that was the second one about the, you know, the delusions or the negative thoughts coming up, to stop them, you know. So it's like, because what happens is I finally realized I'm the one who's miserable with the whole thing. He's fine, he's happy, he's running with his dog. I'm the one who hangs on to it after he goes by, or I'm trying to deal with my dog. So it's like trying to bring these things into that daily existence of how I live my life and how to apply it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of work. Because there's a lot of people that have their dogs off the leash.
A lot of victory to offer.
Really. And hold that
You
person
need
as dear. Hold that person as dear. You know?
You need to start making victory wreaths and giving them out. Just toss them to the dogs that are off leash, like you do like a frisbee or something.
Because that's a lot more fun than what has been going through my mind. Oh gosh, that and people without their mask on, you know. I mean, I'm immunocompromised. There's people in the store that don't have a mask on, you know, those kind of things. It's like that's how I bring it into my try to bring it into my daily practice. Because it happens every day. It happens everywhere I go. You know? So, okay, practice is like another opportunity to practice. Oh, here comes another opportunity to practice.
Yeah, in terms of the mind palace itself, if it's not fun, it probably won't make that big of an impact. It's when it's fun and you're kind of like playing with it, but there's no rush, and there's no need to push, and there's no need to like force yourself to do it ever. You don't ever have to do it. You can play with it whenever you want. And you can look it up. You can look up mind palace, you know, how to do a mind palace. And there's all kinds of like videos and stuff. And then, you know, if you wanted to apply it to this, you could. If not, that's fine too.
Well, you know, I recognize that these are important things to have ingrained in my mind, you know, so I find them to be really beneficial. So, you know, trying to, you know, find ways to bring it into my daily life. So I love the victory wreath, you know, I mean, it's just, so to make a fun thing for each one of these 8 steps is the next piece that I can work on. How do I make it fun? Right. Thank you.
You have it. You have your man running towards you with his dog off the leash, and you've got your wreaths ready to throw out to him. You know, victory, your victory.
I love you, dear one. I can throw hearts
again. You.
So I'm curious what your question was, Shayla.
Me too.
Actually, mine was just answered. I only got halfway through in the remembering stage. And so mine was on the second. And hang on, where's my notes? Oh, the orange room. Shakira, wherever, whenever, that song. And so wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. And then for me, practicing belly dancing, because I mean, come on, she is an awesome belly dancer. You know, I'll practice. And then this is where it just went south.
It sounds perfect so far.
Well, I couldn't remember what I meant by humble, and yeah. So and then the fourth was all I wrote was that I'll love and I'll hold all dear. And so the last two parts, the last two lines, because I didn't make it fun and I didn't make it silly, I couldn't figure out what, I still don't know what the last two lines are. So yeah, you answered my question, making it fun and making it silly. So that was my question.
Well, we've got Shakira belly dancing in an orange room, and wherever, whoever I'm with, may I be the lowest of all. May I see myself as the lowest of all. So you could have her doing, one of those those limbo. So she's belly dancing, and then she's doing the limbo. She's being the lowest of all, and she can get all the way down to the floor. Go under the.
And she's not humble about it. Or she is humble about it.
Is humble one of the words that we have to? I don't think so. It's just seeing myself as the lowest of all. So you don't have to say humble. It's the meaning of it. The being humble is, it's not. I mean, that's the meaning of humble, right? Is to be lower than, right? Yeah, be silly about it. Don't worry. All right, so what do we got? We've got only a few minutes. Do either of you want the 10 minutes before the Vajrasattva practice? No, okay, so we can go the whole way if we need to. Maybe we've done Tonglen every time. And the really important use of Tonglen is when you recognize this phrase of putting the blame all on one. If we've talked about it, but the old Kadampas used to really emphasize this particular idea that all the blame for suffering goes on one thing. And that one cause of suffering is in myself, but it's also in others. So it's sort of like that stick and the hand and the arm and the person and the mind behind that and the anger that's overtaken the mind. Which one of those things are you going to get mad at? You should get mad at the true cause of the suffering. The true cause is the anger or the ignorance that causes the anger. So if there's only one cause for all suffering, and that cause is in others and in myself, whatever the suffering, all the energy of suffering that exists, when that can be turned in on the cause of suffering and sort of implode and destroy that cause of suffering in one's own heart, no matter how hidden it is, that releases an incredible energy and benefit. And so we give all that away as well. So we could do that a little bit more, or we could do the ever-flowing nectar of Bodhichitta, which is a practice that You can find either in the FPMT Foundation store or at lamayeshi.com. And I just typed in the search ever flowing nectar, and this is the PDF that comes up. It's translated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and it is using the text that we just were studying. So this is a practice to annihilate the demon of the self-cherishing mind. And it is a Chenrezig practice, a 1,000-hour Chenrezig practice. And it's too small to see. So I am going to stop sharing and pull it up. Not that. I just had it here. Stop sharing. Okay, so it's a little bigger now. So this gives a little bit more background about Langri Tangpa Dorji Senge, disciple of the virtuous friend, perfect in all knowledge, Kadampa Potawa Rinchen Sao, who in turn was a disciple of the holy lamp of the teachings Atisha. So this is like the grandson of Atisha. So Potawa's 8 heart sons of the Tawa's 8 heart sons, Langri Tangpa was the only one to receive these special instructions on exchanging oneself with others. So this is the practice. So here we are. First, go ahead and sit comfortably. And we've already generated a particularly virtuous motivation so that we can use all the happiness in order to benefit ourselves and others. We've talked about various things about the Lamrim, such as the preciousness of this life, the impermanence of this life, karma, going for refuge to those who have accomplished, and so on. From beginningless lifetimes in samsara until now, I have experienced the general sufferings of samsara numberless times, especially the sufferings of the lower realms. There is no suffering that I have never experienced. When I think deeply about all this, I am gripped with terror and weep uncontrollably. Therefore, I must no longer allow myself to fall under the control of the disturbing, unsubdued minds, which are the causes, the all-arising truth, that oblige me to experience the result, true suffering. As long as I happily continue to follow these evil, disturbing, unsubdued minds with neither fear nor doubt, there is no difference between me and a mindless, crazy person. If I continue to follow the wrong conceptions, I merely ensure that I will keep suffering for countless lives to come. And when I think about this from the depths of my heart, beyond mere words, I am unable to eat by day or sleep by night, and it makes me vomit uncontrollably. Thinking of my foolishness breaks my heart. However, now I have received the inner condition, the precious human body endowed with 8 freedoms and 10 endowments that gives me the ability to achieve all happiness and perfection, and have also met the outer condition, the holy Mahayana virtuous friend, who is extremely difficult to find, but can in a single second grant the highest state omniscient mind. And as well as the inner and outer conditions, I have met the teachings of the Buddha, the supreme medicine that dispels without exception all suffering of migratory beings. Given my incredible good fortune, if I continue to seek mere temporal happiness or my own personal liberation from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued minds and karma, what difference is there between me and a foolish, dumb animal? Such an attitude would be extremely upsetting from several viewpoints. From my own side, how shameless, and from the side of others, how very ungenerous, how selfish and cruel. How dare I cherish myself and renounce others? Aren't other sentient beings the precious ones from whom I have received all happiness and perfection? I must understand that it is inadequate merely to ensure that I shall not be reborn in the suffering lower realms, nor is it enough to seek simply my own release from samsara. All sentient beings have been my mother. There is not a single one who has not. Moreover, each has been my mother numberless times, and each time has been just as kind to me as my present mother, or more kind. At this very moment, not only are these kind mother sentient beings experiencing great suffering, but they are also running constantly to create the cause for more. There is not even a second during which they can experience a moment's happiness. If a mother's suffering is not alleviated by her own child, who else will do it? Even though it is up to me alone to bear the burden of eradicating the suffering of all mother sentient beings, at the moment I am incapable of relieving the suffering of even one sentient being. Yet, if I receive the enlightened holy body, just one ray of its light could ripen the minds of countless sentient beings, leading them to the state of greatest peace. Therefore, to release all mother sentient beings from suffering and lead them to the sublime happiness of enlightenment, I must attain the exalted state of a Buddha. The attainment of Buddhahood is not without cause or conditions. Its principal cause is the 2 Bodhicittas. Therefore, I am going to practice the profound oral teaching on transforming the mind into Bodhicitta. So visualize at the level of your forehead, at a distance of about a body's length in front of you, your root guru manifesting as an inseparable from 1,000 armed Chenrezig Avalokiteshvara, standing on a moon disk that rests upon a lotus. Now perform the 7-ling prayer. You can say this with me or in your heart. Reverently I prostrate to Guru Avalokiteshvara with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma. The 2 bodhicittas ripen, and I receive the great enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So now we'll make a mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May the Guru's life be long. May all beings equaling space receive happiness and comfort. May I and all others without exception accumulate merit, purify obscurations, and quickly achieve enlightenment. Precious Guru, please grant me all realizations of the path from Guru devotion to the completion of training the unified Vajra state. Please grant me blessings that my mind will become Dharma and Dharma will become the path, and that hindrances in the path may not occur, that I may cease all wrong conceptions and receive immediately the two precious bodhicittas. Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamyariyata. Guru Avalokiteshvara is extremely pleased by your request, and together with the moon disk and the lotus, descends to the crown of your head. With each verse of the root text, from the seed syllable Shri at Avalokiteshvara's heart, much blissful white nectar streaming down through the crown of your head. It fills your whole body, purifying all obscurations and bringing all realizations of the entire path to enlightenment, from Guru devotion through Buddhahood, and purifying and granting the specific obscurations and realizations relating to the particular verse you are contemplating. So the Tibetan symbol there is the Shri, the letter Shri. And that's in Avalokiteshvara's heart above your head. And that's where the white nectar streams down into you from. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. The blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from holding others most dear, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate Bodhichitta, which holds others most dear. Your entire body is filled with this white nectar, blissful white nectar, purifying all those obscurations and granting all those realizations. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. The blissful white nectar from the Sri Avalokiteshvara's heart purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from considering yourself the lowest of all, and those that prevent you from holding others dear and supreme, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, by which you consider yourself the lowest of all and hold others dear and supreme. Your entire body is filled with this blissful white nectar. Vigilant the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. The blissful white nectar streaming down from Avalokiteshvara's heart into the crown of your head, purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from confronting and averting delusions the moment they appear, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta and wisdom of emptiness, which automatically extinguishes all delusions. That blissful white nectar fills your entire body. Bringing all those realizations, purifying all the obscurations. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear, as if I had found a precious treasure. The blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from holding wicked sentient beings dear, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, which holds wicked sentient beings as dear as a precious treasure. Your entire body is filled with this blissful white nectar. When, out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. The blissful white nectar coming down from the tree in Avalokiteshvara's heart purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from accepting defeat and offering the victory to others, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate Bodhichitta, which accepts defeat and offers the victory to others. There's not even a single centimeter left in your body that isn't filled with blissful white nectar. When someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. The blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from seeing beings who harm you as your holy guru, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate Bodhichitta, which enables you to see harmful beings as your holy guru. Even the soles of your feet are filled with brilliant, blissful white nectar. In short, both directly and indirectly do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. The blissful white nectar streaming down from Avalokiteshvara's heart purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from offering every happiness and benefit to all mother sentient beings, and secretly taking upon yourself all their harmful actions and suffering, and brings all realizations, especially the loving, compassionate Bodhichitta, which offers every happiness and benefit to others and accepts all their harmful actions and suffering. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. The blissful white nectar streaming down from the tree in Avalokiteshvara's heart, entering the crown of your head, purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from perceiving all phenomena as illusory, and brings all realizations, especially the wisdom of shunyata, emptiness, which perceives all phenomena as illusory, and by which you are released from the bondage, delusion, and karma. That blissful white nectar is super subtle and fills in between the atoms in your body. So you can make the following request of this completion part with me. Most compassionate one, please extend your holy hand and lead me and all other sentient beings into your blissful, pure realm after this life. Be our virtuous friend forever and quickly lead us to Buddhahood. Think that Guru Avalokiteshvara accepts your request and sends immeasurable, innumerable nectar rays into your body. All obscurations, negative karmas, diseases, harm from spirits are instantly purified. Your body becomes as clear as crystal. Then Guru Avalokiteshvara melts into light. That light absorbs into you. Your body, your speech, and mind become inseparably one with Guru Avalokiteshvara's holy body, speech, and mind. So we can do a little bit of recitation, not very much, but a little bit, of the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Meanwhile, you can visualize I appear in the form of Guru Avalokiteshvara. Beams of light radiate from my body, each one bearing a Guru Avalokiteshvara at its tip. Guru Avalokiteshvara comes to sit above the crown of each and every sentient being. Nectar rays flow from each Guru Avalokiteshvara's heart, purifying all the obscurations and negative karma of each sentient being. When all sentient beings are completely purified, Guru Avalokiteshvara dissolves into each one through their crown. Each sentient being becomes Avalokiteshvara. So concentrate on this visualization as you recite the mantra as many times as you can. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. So we're going to dedicate our merits in this way. May all the suffering and causes of suffering of all sentient beings ripen upon me right now. And may all sentient beings receive all my happiness and virtue. May the precious Bodhichitta that has not yet arisen arise and grow. And may that which has been generated never degenerate, but increase forevermore. May I never be discouraged, even for a moment, from practicing the deeds of the Bodhisattvas for the sake of others, by completely renouncing anything done for my own sake and by engaging in the holy actions of the kind founder Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. Through these merits, may I quickly attain the state of great compassionate one, and without exception, lead all mother sentient beings who are most high and noble to that enlightened state. It is essential always to pray like this, to create merit constantly, and to meet the holy Mahayana virtuous friend in this and all future lives. Do you have the ending prayers, Shayla? Gewadi nyo duda lama sangye drup gyune drowa chi kyang malupa de sala gupar shok jang chub sem chog rimpoche ma ke panam ge gyorchi ke wa nyampa me paryong gong ne gong du pelwar shok Tub sul jang shing jam gun gyal wei Tenzin kyong pewe kunzo dok portse. Choksum korwe lek mun tudru. Padak sok duje kundu shabten shu. The wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Venerable One, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors, for those wanderers in far off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us in intentionally descending again into a family of a far distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please, please live long. Beloved teacher, leading your students toward wisdom and compassion, explaining through exacting discernment the steps of the graduated path, you are the unequaled guide. Please live a long and stable life. Thank you. Look at that, it's only 9:02.